Okay, first off, we're not even dating. Second of all, I don't even like him. Third, he's probably running out of fuel soon, so God knows if he'll ever make it back here.
I'm back, bitches!
Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake, and this mic's a little high. And it's Salty Saturday. Oh, it's been a minute since we've got to do a proper Salty Saturday. I have been anxious to get started proper. Thank you so much for joining me, Rustbox. Delighted to see you. Wicked Foxy Dragon, hello. Oh, mercy me. Well, I'll tell you what. Been a good week. Been a real good week. Here is my basic assessment of the United States of America in 2023. In fact, the post-Trump presidency USA. The powers that be looked at the American people nervously. And they wanted to know, are we going to be able to cover this up? Are we going to be able to pretend like none of this happened? Can we go back to the old way of doing things where you guys are quietly living with a boot on your neck? The big fight that the United States is going through right now, and I suspect the rest of the world is as well. And if you're from the rest of the world, tell me about it. The big fight is whether or not we will keep living under conservative tyranny. The entirety of the existence of the United States it's just been plagued by conservatives and conservative ideologies that are destructive, that are based on lies, that are in service of anybody but we the people. And as a result, we've had the party slowly morph into just the place the bad guys know to go if they're going to be involved in politics. It's truly shocking. And the cool thing is, though, that people are starting to get woke. They're waking up to this. They're becoming aware of it. What have we been saying since the founding of this channel? Donald Trump's gift to the United States of America was that he made politics interesting, not fun. It's only fun for people that are not quite right in the head, either because they're themselves political nerds, of which I am guilty, or because they're dancing mad clowns. But he made politics fun. He made it He made it interesting, not fun. And because it became interesting, because suddenly people's immediate futures became dependent on things that politicians did, because he removed that delay between the decision being made and the consequences being felt. Because of that, regular folks now pay attention to politics like they are supposed to. So, now we have a whole generation, by which I mean old and young, a whole generation of people alive on Earth at the same time, who pay close attention to politics and finally are starting to see these folks for what they are. And the examples are coming in. Let's get started with a little update about how things are going around the world. And if you don't mind terribly, I will record it. So Donald Trump's gift to America is that he made politics interesting. Not fun, but interesting. Now that people are paying attention to what MAGA is all about, to what Republicans are all about, let's have a look at the most recent group of elections. We had big city mayor races come in. We had all kinds of elections that went on this week. Check it out. All right, this is from Al Jazeera. This is a fine online rag. It's where Ali Velshi and who else? Who's that other fella I like so very much? Talk about him all the time. He looks like he and Chris Hayes look like they're 12. Christ. Anyway, it's where some of my favorite cable news folks come from. This is by apparently the whole staff. This year will not see decisive elections at the national level in the United States, writes Al Jazeera, but a few municipal and state contests this week may be a bellwether of where voters stand ahead of the presidential vote in 2024. Think of this like a sampler of how people are feeling around the country. What is modern politics? And more importantly, how are people describing modern politics? Voters in Florida, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania headed to the polls on Tuesday to choose local leaders and party nominees for statewide offices. A popular saying in U.S. public life is that all politics is local. I think that's true. Off-year elections, which fall between presidential contests and midterm votes, can be consequential. Here, Al Jazeera looks at key races from Tuesday's election. By the way, I always call midterms off years. I don't know why. I've known it's wrong for some time. I promise you I'll do it again, and I hope you'll correct me when I do. Trump-backed candidate for governor wins Kentucky primary. All right, fair enough. Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, who was endorsed by former President Donald Trump, comfortably won the Republican nomination for governor, fending off two serious opponents, including one who was backed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Okay. Step one, what do we learn from that? Signs that voters who vote Republican like Trump more than DeSantis. Good. If you don't vote Republican, you should despise both those people. They are both foul. Trump has done worse things, but I mean, you're really just measuring what level of hell they belong in. With nearly all ballots counted, Cameron had around 48% of the votes. DeSantis endorsed Kelly Craft, a former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, came in third, more than 30 percentage points behind Cameron. Understanding that this is also going to come down to the popularity of the individual politicians, it's nonetheless a great way to point out how these people are viewed, how their sponsors are viewed. The Florida governor, who has yet to announce a presidential run, but is largely seen as Trump's most serious challenger for the 2024 Republican nomination, came out publicly in support of Kraft a day before the election. So to me, that just tells me what a bad politician DeSantis is. I don't know why you would make room for this story in your life. You could have just as easily backed no one. What would it matter? Trying to make, it sounds like, a political ally and instead making a fool of himself. It is not clear how that endorsement or Trump's backing of Cameron affected the race. I assume it didn't very much either way, but it's nonetheless interesting. But the former president, who is seeking the White House again in 2024, took a victory lap and slammed DeSantis on Wednesday, referring to the Florida governor as the sanctimonious. Jumping down, Cameron will take on incumbent Democratic Governor Andy Beshear in November in what is seen as the most important election of the year. If he wins, Cameron would become Kentucky's first black governor. Truly, even though I don't think it matters as much as centrists make it out to be, I do think representation is important. And I do think, even if this guy is scum that is going to sell out the people of Kentucky for a dime, I do think it's good that Republicans think it is necessary to try to nominate some people of color. Good. A loss for Republicans in Florida. Ooh, get your popcorn. DeSantis was dealt another blow on Tuesday, this time in his own home state of Florida, where he has been touting his proclaimed achievements and conservative credentials. In Jacksonville, a city of nearly 1 million people in northeast Florida, Democrat Donna Deegan beat DeSantis-backed Republican Daniel Davis in the mayor's race. How did I screw that up in the last 3 words? Jackson is now set to lose its status as the largest U.S. city with a Republican mayor. Its current mayor, Lenny Curry, was unable to run this year because of term limits. Don't know how I feel about term limits, genuinely. Love won tonight, and we made history. We have a new day in Jacksonville because people chose unity over division, creating a broad coalition of people across the political spectrum that want a unified city. Deegan, a former local news anchor, wrote on Twitter late on Tuesday, "We will bring change for good to Jacksonville by making good on the decades-long broken promises on infrastructure, building an economy that works for everyone, and improving access to health care." Just real quick, I don't want to understate what a big deal that is. It's hard for Republicans to win in a city. Because cities have a lot of people. Cities require a lot more serious politics, as in like genuinely doing the job. And cities tend to have diversity because people gather together for safety. So this is huge, and this is a very good sign for Florida. Setback for progressives in Philadelphia. Public safety has been the top issue in major city municipal elections in the U.S. in recent years, mostly because right-leaning media has drummed it up. As crime rates have risen since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, mayoral races, more conservative. All right, here we go. Pay attention to how they're talking about the Democrats here. Mayoral races in several Democratic-run cities have pitted progressives who advocate for more funding for social programs and education to tackle the root causes of crimes against moderates who advocate bolstering law enforcement. Notice how they are making a bigger deal about talking about the different factions of Democrats. Notice how they are making a less big deal earlier in the article about talking about the different factions of Republicans. For Republicans, the factions are just divided up by their chain of sponsors, a chain of personalities. But policy, they haven't even run on policy in years. They didn't have a platform for Trump. They did not have a platform for him. Democrats, however, they're talking about differing ideologies, how the conservative Democrats and the progressive Democrats are separating. Here is one example on police reform. Obviously, police require reform. We have police lynching black people in the United States. We can't have it. Cannot have state-sponsored murderers. So what do? Well, Democrats are seriously talking about this. Democrats offer a conservative way of dealing with it, which is, the traditional old-fashioned way. Pour more money into the police departments, let them buy tanks or whatever they want to terrorize people. And then progressives have a way of dealing with it, which is, sane. The point is, when it comes to serious political discussion, already foreign news organizations are doing it correctly. And they're talking about Democrats versus progressives, whereas that other party, that third party, the Republicans, they're just insane. That's accurate. That's a good way to discuss it. With most balanced, Parker's public safety platform called for hiring more law enforcement officers, sure, and prioritizing filling vacancies in the police department, absolutely. With most ballots counted, she earned around 33% of the votes Tuesday, placing first among 5 serious candidates, including progressive favorite Helen Jim, who came in third. Damn it. Parker, who was favored to win in November against Republican nominee David O., would become the city's first female mayor. I'm so incredibly honored to yada, yada, yada. So look, the takeaways from this. First of all, Ron DeSantis is not catching on, and I'm glad, because I want Trump to be the face of this madness. I don't want this madness to have a legacy. Second, and also on that first point, Trump he's going to prison, or at the very least, he's going to be convicted. He's done. I'm positive he's done the crimes it looks like he's done. We have insisted that they get investigated, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the state of those investigations. But so long as the American people continue to put pressure on the Justice Department and insist that this get taken seriously, Trump will be running for president while he is dealing with charges of sedition. And all this bullshit, all this jibber-jabber from Republicans is going to be hashed out in court. And if he has a case to make, you know how we're always saying, show us the evidence of these wild things you're saying, and they never can? Well, the time to do it is going to be here. If you want to be a free man, show us the evidence. Oh, you don't have any because you were making this up because you're a liar. Okay. Guilty, prison, get the out of here. That's thing number one. I am glad that Trump is beating DeSantis in terms of popularity. Good. To tie the whole Republican Party to that sinking wreckage and let them drown. But then the other thing, number two, the Democrats are being looked at now as two distinct political factions. It's a way to describe two political factions, and the way to more accurately describe them is progressives and conservative Democrats. Or as I think they're still calling them centrist, but they are acknowledging that there are progressive Democrats versus standard, the old-fashioned, I guess. And the old-fashioned Democrats are now the conservatives. That's fine. We can have conservatives. It's totally fine. But the fact that they're being acknowledged as two different factions means that when the fever breaks on MAGA, and I suspect it's going to break when these people see consequences. One of the very first videos ever done on this channel was about different levels of maturity and how at different levels of maturity you understand right and wrong through different external means. If you're a grown-ass adult, Salty Saturday, I don't got to be nice. If you're a grown adult, then you vote obviously Democratic in some capacity, and you view right and wrong generally through principles of some sort. But if you are not very developmentally advanced, in other words, if you didn't spend much of your life thinking about right and wrong seriously, then you tend to look at things in Kohlberg's earlier stages, where you look at whether or not somebody got in trouble for it. Right now, it's real hard to say that Trump got in trouble for anything. In fact, he can even get away with doing that nonsense about saying, well, it's just a witch hunt. It's just a show trial. Because what's happened at the trials? Even in the E. Jean Carroll thing, he got found civilly liable. And then what happened? Is he in prison? It really is that simple. They look at, they hear rapist, and they're like, well, he's not in prison, so this must be nonsense. They couldn't really put him in prison because he didn't really do that thing. Oh, he had to write a check for $5 million? That's just what women do. they say. They're just trying to steal his money. He can make that case because it doesn't, to them, because it doesn't line up with what a child would view as crime and punishment. They're not going to pay attention to the nuance. But we are getting to a place in these trials where money won't be enough to pay one's debt to society. And we can't keep pretending like we have equal justice until Trump does some prison time. Probably, I would hope, permanent prison time or permanent custody of the state in some manner. When that happens, there will be a sea change. It will, and we need to start, by the way, that culturally now. It should already be unacceptable culturally to announce you're a Republican. It's unacceptable, just barely, culturally, to announce that you're a Nazi. Should be the same thing with Republicans. When that happens, you're going to have a flood of people saying, "Oh, I was just fiscally conservative," fleeing to Democrats. Bunch of CNN watchers. When that happens, I'm just saying, build the infrastructure now to deal with it. Build the infrastructure now to help make it happen. Put that idea in as many Republicans' heads as you can, that there's conservative Democrats, so that they choose to do that instead of joining January 6th too. And also, amongst Democrats, put the idea in their heads, particularly if you got people that pride themselves on being lefties but don't really follow politics that closely, put the idea in their head that the true lefties are the progressives, because that's just the facts. We got a lot we're going to do today on Salty Saturday. I'm looking forward to all of it. And boy, a lot of it involves that punk Trump. It's a fun one. See what the wicked community has to say. Mehdi Hassan, Patrick Thibodeau. Thank you. That was killing me. Yes, Mehdi Hassan. Lulu Girl. He's no leader. He's like a dog. Yeah. That was a good one in Jacksonville. Yes, indeed. Patrick Thibodeau said, I love Ilhan Omar's tweet. It's true. Wicked Foxy Dragon said, he isn't even trying to hide that he did the crimes. Yeah. But he can still run from prison. He can try. I don't think he runs very fast. Lulu Girl says, it's because I'm smart, DT on taxes. Yeah, what an asshole. Yeah, he can scam us because he's smart. Great. That's how it happened with Nixon. He was not a criminal, in quotes, until he was. Yeah, I don't have a lot of, I don't publicly try to put a lot of confidence behind what I say unless I'm really, really sure. This I'm really, really sure of. And I became so sure of it after January 6th, when there was that moment of hesitation, when everybody was real quiet for a minute. And they were looking around for those consequences. And I think the whole world was shocked when there were none. And then we were allowed to go back to the chaos. Paul Atkinson, hello. Happy to see you too, sir. My, oh my. Yeah, I had an unexpected break there, but all is well now. Oh, mercy. Yeah, I'm confident that we're going to be seeing a Nixon 2 electric boogaloo. Except, on that note, and we're not recording this is live only, for the Wicked Senate only. We need to learn the lessons from Nixon. There's so little talk about what happened after Watergate. He was rehabilitated in the public's eye, just like George Bush was attempted to be rehabilitated. God bless Mehdi Hassan, who did a good job of grabbing the cable news crowd and shaking them and making it clear what George W. Bush did. I talked a little bit earlier about Mehdi Hassan possibly making a play to build a digital audience. I truly hope he doesn't, because we need voices like that talking to the cable news crowd. But I do believe that we're going to need to prevent the Nixon aftermath 2 from happening, where the lightest version of a punishment is doled out, and then culturally we just allow these criminals to be seen as somehow doing what they did for any reason other than political, or other than seeking power, I should say, including just being political. It wasn't that. It was a crime. So it's going to probably, for the rest of their lives, it is going to require us to weigh in and tell people who make such decisions that we will have Trump treated as a criminal because he did crime. Okay. We have a suggestion from my man Wireless Mike that I want to show because this is just too good. It involves the Tennessee 3. As you may recall, the Tennessee 3, Gloria Johnson, Justin Jones, and Justin Pearson, if I recall correctly, faced a lot of whiplash, a lot of resistance for daring to say that Tennessee ought to do something about guns following yet another massacre of innocents. The worst scum in the universe tried to expel them for that. It resulted instead in these folks becoming national heroes, as well it should. I hope we get a Pearson or hell, any of them running for president, at the very least running for governor of Tennessee and winning. But what could have gone missed is that there's other folks in that government body, and one of them is being very Republican about things, by which I mean being an RAPEist.
Now with breaking news. This is News Channel 5 at 6.
What an intro.
We have just received a letter from him resigning immediately, and we accepted it.
All right, thank you.
And with that, House Speaker Cameron Sexton announces the resignation of a member of his Republican leadership team just hours after News Channel 5 Investigates exposed a sexual harassment scandal involving that lawmaker. Hello, everyone. I'm Carrie Sharp.
And I'm Vicki Yates. Representative Scotty Campbell was among.
Hold up. I mean, let me just say it again. Republicans are criminals. Republicans are sexual deviants. Republicans are predators. Republicans are diddlers. They're gross to kids. We constantly see this. Shove this in the face of every Republican voter you know. This whole story that's coming up, it matches all these things. Republicans are gross wretches. I got to start being more clear. Republican politicians are gross wretches. This is fact. They're the worst people we have. They are the absolute worst scum in America. I suspect around the world, the more conservative your politician, the worse of a human being they are. But it's undeniable that in the United States of America, Republicans are the worst scum there is. Really drive this home to every voter you know. Generalize. At this point, we can generalize. I know we're real scared of falling into that trap of being racist, of being any kind of ist, where you're making. Let's take the cruelty out of it. You're making inaccurate assumptions about people when you're an ist. You know, when you're a racist, you make inaccurate assumptions about people because of race. When you're a nationalist, you make inaccurate assumptions about people because of the nation they come from. This is not that. The Republican Party is a group that people opt to be in or not. And it is a group of criminal scum. So, if you choose to be a Republican in 2023, there's a reason. Republicans are criminal scum. They are the worst group of politicians this country has ever produced. They are an organized crime organization. They must be treated as such. And if you're still a Republican now, you are scum. We need to make that crystal clear. Because, yes, it is in large part going to require the Justice Department to be made to do its job, or the Department of Justice to be made to do its job, and to investigate these people at a federal level, sure. But also there's got to be a cultural response to what they are. So remember all of that. What I just said about Republicans. They are scum. They are criminals. They are diddlers. They go after kids all the time. They're gross wretches. All of these things are true. And they are on display here. This guy is one of the people that they're talking about, is one of the people that voted to get rid of the Tennessee 3 for the crime in his eyes of sticking up for children. What did he do?
Those who recently voted to expel the Tennessee 3, but it turns out Campbell and the GOP had their own secrets.
As our Phil Williams discovered, Campbell had quietly been found guilty of sexually harassing legislative interns, but nothing had happened, Phil, until today.
That's right. We discovered that the East Tennessee Republican had been found guilty in that secret process of sexually harassing the college interns, accused of some extremely vulgar behavior.
Now, real quick, let me just repeat what they said so that it is crystal clear. Of the gross white guys in the bottom there, of the gross bearded white guys in the bottom there, the one in the middle was found to have been harassing interns, and Republicans wanted to do nothing about it. You know, like the church, they wanted to cover it up. But the news media exposed it. I love local news. Wireless Mike, thank you so much for the suggestion, by the way. All right, let's just dive into this. It's good. I'm going to let him go.
But Campbell didn't lose his leadership post in the Republican caucus nor his committee seats. That all changed within hours after we confronted him this morning.
They have no morals.
Hey, Representative Campbell, how are you, sir? We wanted to give the East Tennessee Republican a chance to respond to the findings of our latest investigation of Tennessee's Capitol Hill. As I understand, you admitted to sexually harassing this intern?
Give me just 5 seconds. Okay.
In fact, Scotty Campbell already knew we were investigating.
Oh God. Let me just take that again without my mug on there. Oh, that's too good. Let me just get 5 seconds.
That all changed within hours after we confronted him this morning. Hey, Representative Campbell, how are you, sir? We wanted to give the East Tennessee Republican a chance to respond to the findings of our latest investigation of Tennessee's Capitol Hill. As I understand, you admitted to sexually harassing this intern?
Give me just 5 seconds.
In fact, Scotty Campbell already knew we were investigating some serious allegations.
Hold on just a second.
About his relationship with at least one legislative intern, although he would soon divulge there was a second intern.
Which direction do I need to look for your camera?
Just look at me. Sure. Campbell is vice chair of the House Republican caucus, and when 3 Democrats engaged in a gun violence protest on the House floor, he voted to expel all 3. Yet this memo, obtained by News Channel 5 Investigates, shows a secret ethics panel recently concluded that based on a staff investigation, the ethics subcommittee finds that Representative Campbell violated the legislature's sexual harassment policy.
I had consensual adult conversations with 2 adults off property.
One doesn't get written up for consensual conversations. The letter says that you were guilty of violating the harassment policy.
I think conversations are consensual once that's verbally agreed to. And if I choose to talk to any intern in the future, it will be recorded.
One of the interns had an apartment in Capitol Towers, a condo apartment complex next to the Capitol, where Campbell also had a place. The Republican lawmaker allegedly saw her and a 19-year-old intern going into her apartment. According to an account the victim sent to her university, Campbell made comments about how he was in his apartment imagining that we were performing sexual acts on one another, and how it drove him crazy knowing that was happening so close to him. The woman
Hold up. All right, set aside what's legal and not. Is it just on its face, is it legal to talk about sex with a 19-year-old? Let's assume they're consenting and all that. Yeah. I guess it's legal. Very important that, and hey, I'll talk about this in all kinds of contexts. It's very important that what is legal be broader than what is socially acceptable. So is it legal for that gross guy to talk to a 19-year-old about this stuff? Yes. Is it socially acceptable? No. Of course not. Quit pretending like it is. You're in your mid-20s even. It's not cool to talk to anybody with who could be described accurately as a teen about sexual things. You, as an adult, should acknowledge what a extraordinarily young adult is. You shouldn't be tempted by anything a young adult has to offer. Barely should you be tempted by the conversation a young adult has to offer. Certainly not what they have to offer sexually. You shouldn't be thinking about what a very young adult, a 19-year-old girl, for God's sake, is doing sexually. Shouldn't be something that's in your mind. That looks like exactly the sort of person who is that. And by the way, I'll even go so far as to say I think there's a place for gross guys in society. But have the decency to be ashamed. For God's sake, have the decency to understand you're a wretch. Don't try to hold your head high about that. You're gross. You have an obligation to acknowledge it, at the very least. Oh, Republicans, this is what you are right now. If you consider yourself a Republican voter, then you should know that you consider yourself the voter for gross dudes like this. This is the entirety of what Republicans are. And case in point, this guy wasn't going to suffer anything for what we're about to hear. Yeah, it gets worse than what you've already heard. Bothering these women. Republicans didn't want to do anything with this guy. They wanted to just let him go because this didn't offend their morality, because they're not moral people. Because Republican voters, you have elected immoral people. And now, up until this point in history, you could be forgiven. Up until this point in history, I've been saying, don't blame the voters. Up until this point. Now you know. Now you will be held to account as well. Do you support this behavior?
Added, I uncomfortably explained that was not happening, and he insisted that he knew it was and asked me to tell him about it. She continued, I explained that she is my friend, and he proceeded to describe how sexually attractive he finds her, referring to the 19-year-old intern. You were in your apartment imagining that they were performing sexual acts on one another?
That's not true.
So she's just making that up?
Yes.
On another occasion, the woman says she went to Campbell's apartment to return a wrench she had borrowed. Quote,
Hold up. Just to be clear, he called her a liar then. Just so we're clear. Called her a liar. Someone's lying now. Let's figure out who is more likely. Is it this gross dude? Or the girl's trying to get by?
Proceeded to ask how many men I've slept with. She recalled I told him 0, and he insisted I was lying and told me not to lie. He then proceeded to ask how many women I've slept with and said he bets girls go crazy over me. You asked her about how many men she had slept with and then asked about how many women she had slept with?
No.
So you're saying she's just making all of this up?
I'm saying that we had a consensual adult conversation.
Then, according to the woman's account, the Republican leader offered cannabis gummies if she would show him tattoos and piercings on her body. He denies it. Her story, I told him absolutely not, and he begged me for several hugs. She says I was getting progressively more afraid and uncomfortable. He then reached out his hand towards me and grabbed me around my neck. I recoiled and said I felt sick and immediately left. Again, Campbell says he didn't think he did anything wrong.
How many people have you met like that in your life that just have no game? You know, set aside the morality. Someone my age, which that guy looks to be roughly, maybe a little younger. Still, though, right in that ballpark. Someone my age has no business being flirtatious with a teenager. A teenager. But let's just put him, let's assume he's 19. He's still in a different position of power. That is an intern he's talking to. In fact, let's age her up. Let's say she was 37. Still an intern. Still an intern. But also, let's just say they met on the street. They're the exact same age. On the surface, there's nothing morally wrong with it. There's not a power imbalance in terms of experience, wealth, or any of that. Okay. How, in what you've heard, how many no thank yous, how many polite, excuse me, I just want to go about my day, do you need to hear? This guy has no game. He has just boiled down what they've said to their the core subtext, I guess. He says, sexual things? Are you involved in sexual things? She says, no. He says, I bet you're involved in sexual things. And she says, nope. He says, will you tell me about more of your sexual things? She says, no. Stop it. He tries to grab her then by the neck, tries to make physical contact with her. There is a reason that a certain class of people try to become Republicans. A certain class of people see the treatment of women and see that as their ticket to getting what they've always wanted out of women. And because they're not terribly creative, they're not terribly interesting people, what they want is the most basic thing you can imagine. And at no point, I'm sure, at no point did this guy think, I will make myself more sexually attractive to these two kids that I want to bother. Again, setting morality aside, at no point did this person think of that. This nerd thought, I will accrue enough power that they desire the power, and they will be willing to put up with my nonsense to get a little taste of that power. This guy thought, I'm going to keep putting that out there. I'm going to show them how badly I want them sexually, so that I make it crystal clear that they will be required to do that. They want to move up in this political scene. Now, bear in mind, I can't stress this enough. This guy did this, and the Republican Party was going to let him go. They were going to let him stay there. They were going to let him go on doing this to other people. They don't have any morals. The Republican Party has no principles. It was only when this got exposed that they had to act.
I was told that if anything ever crossed the line, they would tell me directly. And I'm hearing it from Phil.
But remember the report from the ethics panel finding that Campbell had indeed violated the harassment policy. So are you saying the ethics subcommittee is lying?
I'm saying that I did not know that a workplace policy could be enforced when you're not at work.
But News Channel 5 Investigates has learned that legislative officials took the complaints against Campbell so seriously that they've now spent thousands of dollars to get the intern out of her lease at Capitol Towers, to move her furniture back home, and to put her up in a downtown hotel until her internship is done. As for how Campbell thinks his vote to expel the Tennessee Three squares with his own behavior,
they broke the House rules of decorum.
And you broke the House policies regarding sexual harassment, according to this letter.
I had a consensual conversation with adults. And when the adults informed me that we could talk and that there weren't guardrails, I talked to who I thought were my friends.
Friends whose definition of friendship appears to be far different from this Republican's idea of what it means to be a friend. Again.
Before this man wraps it up, what the hell? Yeah. 2 points. Number one, fair enough. Regarding the, I didn't think work rules could be enforced out of work. Fair enough. Genuinely. That would almost be fair. Excuse me, not fair. It is fair enough, but that would almost be an excuse, I guess. Except that he never stops being their work superior. And we weren't talking about rules of conversations, rules of when you can speak, rules of when yada yada. No, we were talking about the nature of their relationship. And at the end of the day, you can't be fiddling with interns, you gross dude. And also, I might get a little heat for this, but the principle of what he was saying was correct about the Tennessee Three being violating a different rule. He is right on that. His conclusion is the exact opposite. They should have received perhaps a formal write-up for breaking the rules, just so that we can acknowledge that breaking a rule was part of their protest. Yeah, that would have been fair. Petty, but fair. He deserves what has happened. He deserves to no longer be able to represent anybody because he can't be trusted around kids.
And Representative Campbell resigned about 6 hours after we confronted him with those allegations. Still, there are lots of questions that are not answered. Why did Speaker Sexton and other Republican leaders not act more decisively? And how much is this costing taxpayers? Legislative officials say that number is confidential, but you can bet we're not done investigating. Vicki?
We know that. Thank you so much, Phil.
I'm going to have to edit the crap out of this. Oh. All right, so first of all, wireless mic. That was just a treat. Thank you so much. Takeaways. Make it very clear to anybody that even addresses Republicans or talks about Republicans as though they can be considered a serious party. Not anymore. Culturally, they are no longer allowed to be a serious party in the United States. It's a criminal organization. Keep telling people that it is literally a criminal organization. They purchase lawyers for people that are going to testify against them to stop those people from testifying against them. They use mob tactics. They are swindling their voters, their people that donate to them all the time. The We Build the Wall campaign was nothing but a scam. And then Trump, in his official capacity as a Republican politician, pardoned the We Build the Wall people. They are a bunch of diddlers. Look at the Daily Cause articles. It's a like a 30+ entry article with like hundreds and hundreds of Republicans that have been found to be gross kitty fiddlers. That's who they are. And look at this. Bothering interns. Can't keep his hands to himself. Can't keep his mouth shut. Can't be a professional. Not a serious person. Except that he held a serious job. We need to fix the culture in the U.S. and around the world. And the way to do that is to, of course, keep insisting that our law enforcement go after these criminals. We will have to soon start replacing law enforcement who have done an insufficient job of this. But our main labor is going to have to be talking to other people that don't follow this as closely and still are holding on to an old view of who these parties are. Correct the record. Anybody talks about Republicans as anything other than a group of criminal wretches. Correct them. You want to vote conservative, there is a conservative option. You can vote for Chuck Schumer. You can vote for Ted Lieu. You can vote for folks in the Democratic Party who hold very conservative views. Joe Manchin, oh my God, he's a conservative through and through. But if you're voting for Republicans, you are not conservative. You are a chaotic wretch who loves destruction and pain and suffering. And that needs to be the way it is addressed, because that is the reality. Oh, I'm delighted to see what y'all have to say. Interesting. Dean Oldfield. Dean Oldfield says no normal human can be friends with this Republican Party. Totally. Lulu Girl said when there's a power difference, unacceptable. Yes, exactly. He is gross. Oh, God. Wicked Foxy Dragon says, just because I get you coffee doesn't mean I like to. There is a difference between tolerating and being okay with. Yeah, wholeheartedly. Grace and Dragon says, rawr. Oh, thank you much. Oh. Interesting. Lulu Girl says Giuliani is maximum gross. Yes, he is. Guitar Dog, good to see you, says par for the course. Wholeheartedly agreed. Yeah. I am eventually going to talk about Giuliani. But believe it or not on this stream. And the reason why is because I want to understand the case a little bit better against Giuliani. It sounds like there is yet another, well, I guess we're going to take a second to talk about it. Sounds like there is yet another major crime we can get Trump for, which is selling pardons. And it sounds like Giuliani, to the surprise of no one, just like, any Republican, is an RAPE-ist. he once again, he knows he cannot be sexually attractive to another person, so he uses his power to force that person to engage in sexual activities with him. That sounds like what happened, but the fact that it ties in to the potential bribe taking threw me, and I don't want to talk about it without accurately talking about that. So I will do a more detailed thing on that next week. Probably not live, maybe live. All right, we got a lot more. Let's rock this thing. Oh, mercy. Where's this clip? Yes. All right. We're going to talk. Let me try this again. So we just talked about the fact that Republicans can no longer be treated like a legitimate political party. They're not. They're a criminal organization. They're also fascist. Ron DeSantis has been attacking trans people. In fact, Republicans all around the world have been, all around the country, have been attacking trans people, and conservatives all around the world. That's any minority is somebody they'll go after. But in the U.S., actual authoritarian fascist laws have been put in place. We do need federal rules put in place that undo all of these nonsense state laws. That will have to come in 2024. We need a House, Senate, and White House, and some emergency action taken to protect trans people, as well as people who can have children, people who can get pregnant. But we are fortunately not alone in this world. There are other countries who are going through similar things, including similar issues with labor. And we can use them as a template for what we can do. We don't have to pioneer all this. No. There's, in fact, a country which the United States has a lot of historical ties to. Our fight for freedom, which the U.S. has yet to win, but it's been fought alongside this country. It's France. And right now, they should be an inspiration to us. Here's Tom Hartman talking about it.
France. This just, breaking news out of France. Nicolas Sarkozy, the former president, he was president from 2007 to 2012. He just lost his case today against a 2021 conviction for corruption and influence peddling. He got a 3-year sentence with 2 years suspended. He has to wear an electronic bracelet. Again, this is the president of France, or the former president of France. They found that he and his former lawyer, a fellow by the name of Herzog, had formed a corruption pact with a judge by the name of Azibert to obtain and share information about a legal investigation they were concerned about. And get this, the way that they busted him, the French version of the FBI actually wiretapped the president while he was the president because they thought he was committing a crime. Where was our FBI when Donald Trump was in office? Sarkozy's going to jail for things that he did illegal. In fact, he had a third unofficial phone line that was taken out under the name of Paul Bismuth. And when the French FBI, or variation on the FBI, found out about it, they wiretapped it. Why does this guy have this secret phone line? He's also looking at another year in prison on a completely separate case that had to do with his getting money from Libya for that 2007.
Well, that was awkward. Before he goes on to the Libya thing, note that Sarkozy, I'm trying to be more general. This involved the politician, the politician's lawyer, and a judge in conspiracy together. We should really remember this because I'll tell you, if it turns out Donald Trump has contacted any of the judges who have ruled in any of his many, many court cases inappropriately, particularly, ones he appointed and he thinks owe him, and that judge didn't disclose that fact and ruled in Trump's favor, we should look at opening another case. And by the way, get the law enforcement in the United States real familiar with the idea that no matter what they do, they're going to be screamed at by MAGA. I don't believe that law enforcement, I don't believe they have any illusions about that. However, they seem to use that, the fact that Republicans, conservatives, will have a problem with it, as an excuse. They say, if we do this, voters, the American people, they'll say, meaning conservatives, will have a problem with it. We need to make it clear that we will have a problem. Decent people will have a problem with them failing to go after criminals. Just saying. All right, what's this other
election
case?
Campaign? So keep an eye on this, number one. But more importantly, hey, if France can do it, we can do it, right? Put a previous president in jail, no problem. And then, have him wear an ankle bracelet the rest of the time.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Ron DeSantis, I mentioned this in the first hour that I would tell you about this. This is just an absolutely breathtaking story that David Sirota's publication, levernews.com, broke. And the essence of the story is that Ron DeSantis is running a scheme where he takes pension funds. Now, these are firefighters, teachers, police officers, other government employees in Florida. Their money goes into a pension fund, and that pension fund is supposed to invest that money and put it in good investments. So, for example, over the last, if you were to have put money into the Standard & Poor's 500 index, right? Just buy an index fund. They don't even have significant fees. Back in 2019, if you had bought that, you would have made 15.7% interest, or profit, or whatever you want to call it. Your wealth would have grown by 15% between then and now, in the 4 years since then. But instead, DeSantis put it into a management fund called Aeolus Capital Management, and it has returned a 0.7% return. Now, of course, these hedge funds, they take a whole pile of money off the top in fees and commissions and things, which is where a lot of that money from the pension funds in Florida is going. It's going right into the pockets of the guys who own these funds. And in fact, this fund is in part owned by a guy by the name of Paul Singer, who also owns Elliott Management. He's the CEO, co-CEO of that. But this is, based in Bermuda. And Singer hosted a 2021 Colorado meeting of elite conservative billionaires called the American Opportunity Alliance, where DeSantis appeared. And the following year, Singer pumped $750,000 into the Republican Governors Association. 3 weeks after that, the Republican Governors Association transferred $2 million into Ron DeSantis' super PAC. And they go through 4 or 5 or 6 of these different hedge funds in New York that are producing crappy returns for the state of Florida, but DeSantis keeps giving them more and more of the retirees' money.
Dang it, he's going to wrap up soon. Let's just let him keep going.
Because they're recycling this money back to DeSantis. Now, it's illegal for them to give it directly to DeSantis, so what they're doing is they're giving it to the Republican Governors Association, and then a week later, the RGA writes a check to the DeSantis super PAC. It's, another example of how DeSantis has corrupted Florida. It's another example of my original premise when I opened the show today, that these guys are just corrupt. Corruption is now officially the Republican Party's brand. It's what they live for. It's how they roll. It's what they do.
Saying more of the same. This is what Republicans are now. We need to make this amongst the culture. We need to make this the standard point. One thing I'd like y'all to start doing is pay attention to how informed the person you're talking to is and adjust your message for that level of information. You guys are highly informed. So, yeah, it'll be helpful if you make a case at this level. You know, you understand the ins and outs and all of that. That's great. But who are you going to be talking to? Who is this informed and still on the side of Republicans? No one. No one. Our dark opposites are people that have their heads full of conspiracy nonsense. And to us it seems like that must be those 70 million people, that voted for Trump. However many million, 74, I don't know. Those are the people we're arguing with. So we think that's everybody. That's not. 9 out of 10 of those people that voted for Trump, they watch Fox News a couple of nights a week. They have no idea what is going on around them. A lot of those people that voted for Trump, they vote conservative. Yes, they believe Trump in the broad strokes. Maybe they don't believe everything, but they, the general spiel. They think he's there to help conservatives. Just make it clear. Tailor your message for their level of education on these matters. Somebody is a casual voter. They don't really pay attention to politics most of the time. Tell them the truth, but in the broad strokes. The Republican Party is a criminal organization. That's what they've become. The Republican Party is a group of the grossest human beings currently in existence in this era. They are nothing but that. Scandal after scandal, crime after crime. They accuse Democrats all the time of these things, but they can never prove them in court. These things rarely get to court when Republicans are the ones who are genuinely doing things. But when they do, it's a conviction. Go at it from that angle. Broad strokes. What can we learn from France? We can learn that it is possible, that the sun still rises after a former leader is convicted. It also helps, by the way, if it's not a surprise, if these things are telegraphed, and we're going to talk about that right now, because Fani Willis is coming. Wicked Foxy Dragon says, there are some things I cannot break down Barney style. Oh, mercy. Yeah, it's gonna be hard to simplify all of this, certainly. Guitar Dog, while in prison, he'll work on his new book, Mein Trumpf. I'm stealing that, Guitar Dog. That's good. I bet, says Dean Oldfield, he didn't invest anything in Disney. Yeah, I'll bet not. Let's add that to the list. Republicans are bad for business. Try to just get one example of these things. You don't need to memorize. That's what I guess I'm trying to say, is you don't need to memorize an encyclopedia of Republican crimes. That's what they're hoping we burn ourselves out trying to do. You don't need that. If somebody murders an entire town with a butcher knife, with a meat cleaver, let's get even more cartoonish. You can stop after you've proved that they hacked apart the mayor and the city council and the population of the town's hospital. You don't have to wait to make a decision about whether or not this is a good person until you've gone to the school and you've gone to the grocery store and you've confirmed that every single one has been hacked to bits. You could just say, "Hey, watch out for that person. They're a murderer." That's what this is. You can go to a Republican voter and say, "Look, if you care about business, why on earth would you vote for Republicans? They're terrible for business. Every time they're in control of the country spends more money than it has. Then Democrats balance the budget. And Republicans, as soon as they get in power again, ruin it again. Here's an example, Ron DeSantis and Disney. He lost all of those jobs for Florida, billions of dollars over the course of years. More than 100 good-paying jobs flew out of Florida. Why? Because he cried. He filled his pants over one thing they said that disagreed with his politics. Republicans are terrible for business. Remember Trump's tariffs? That didn't hurt China. That cost American taxpayers money. They bail out huge banks and then let those banks keep making the same mistakes. Republicans are terrible for business. Repetition. Republicans are terrible for business. Republicans are criminals. The Republican Party is a criminal organization. Do you want to refute this person that we're hypothetically talking to? Yeah, tell you what. Look at the E. Jean Carroll case. You tell me what you think of Trump. Put the onus on them to go look it up. And tell them where they can get the accurate information. Don't make them be like, "Oh, let's see what Sean Hannity had to say about this." No, Sean Hannity is not news. Fox is not news. Newsmax is not news. Cite the Dominion suits. You don't need to memorize every last thing. Look, Fox lies to you. Case in point, they just had to pay the better part of $1 billion, $780-some million, because they lied to you. They just got found out in court for lying. You can read their text messages. Go look up what they said in their text messages. How about that? Just don't ever take a Republican voter seriously. Don't do them the disservice of letting them think that they're an informed voter if they're seriously considering Republicans. Unless they have, like, swastikas tattooed on their face. They're not serious. If they want the country run properly, you cannot vote for Republicans. All right. Let's talk about Fani Willis. So it's not going to be history making to have it is. Look, Trump's already been charged for a crime. So that the seal has been broken on that. We have demonstrated that it is possible through the heroism of Alvin Bragg actually doing his job. I know, crazy. But let's be honest. The cover-up payments, which, yeah, they were lying to the American people. They were cheating to win an election. Yeah, okay. That's not the issue of greatest concern, though. The issue of greatest concern is, what do you call it? That one thing. Oh, yeah, the coup. Donald Trump participated in a coup. What we really need to see, frankly, is that being answered for. Now, I want to be clear. We already have an issue we're going to have to deal with, which is ensuring that this is handled quickly next time. Because right now, what we have shown potential traitors is that we're very hesitant to do anything to deal with traitors in our country. That's bad. We need harsh laws put in place over this. We possibly need another law enforcement organization created to deal with this. We need to make it clear that when these punks try this again, a SWAT team is going to burst through their windows, kick their teeth down their throat, and drag what's left of them into a cold, stony prison cell. That needs to be made crystal clear. Again, 2024 is important. Last couple of elections I have heard, this is the most important. It's all been true. They have all been the most important election in American history. They keep getting more important. Why is that? Because when we win the good guys, we don't secure our victory. We don't make the evil behavior illegal. We need to start doing that. Fortunately, with the laws that are on the books, it looks like Donald Trump's butt is going to get charged for his betrayal.
Last month, DA Willis told local law enforcement to be ready for heightened security this summer. She told them she would announce possible criminal indictments between July 11th and September 1st. Indictments she thought might provoke such significant public reaction that the indictments could be a threat to the court's safety and that of her legal team. Well, today, that timeline got even tighter. The New York Times was the first to report that Fani Willis has told most of her staff to plan to work remotely from the last week of July through the first 3 weeks of August. Most of the judges in the downtown Atlanta courthouse will apparently be away during the first week of August for a judicial conference. But Willis is asking those judges not to schedule any trials during the 2 weeks after that conference, the week starting on Monday, August 7th and Monday, August 14th. And why could that be? Office staff, stay home. Judges, stay home. Law enforcement, get ready. In other words, Fani Willis is planning to announce something so big between the end of July and the first 3 weeks of August that it poses a significant security threat to a significant number of people. Willis's office has been investigating Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election in Georgia for more than 2 years now. And 2 days ago, we learned that yet another one of Trump's lawyers may be a target in that investigation. That followed reports that at least 9 of Trump's 16 fake electors from Georgia have.
Remember, over in France, a lawyer and a judge wrapped up in those charges. This is a pretty standard way for this kind of crime to go down. When people are this rich, you and I probably see lawyers as like fancy people. Like, oh, sir, well, how are you? Let me treat you like a fancy Dan. Let me hold that door for you, pull out that chair. You're a fancy person. These people, they see lawyers as working men. They see, Alina Habba, he views her as an employee. They are so much wealthier than us that to them, the idea of making a lawyer do a crime is nothing. They're like, yeah, of course, I'd have a henchman do my crimes for me. Yeah, that's what a lawyer is, a paid henchman. Just try to view it from their point of view, and it makes a lot more sense as to why all these lawyers are getting wrapped up in this stuff. It's because they're legal experts, and when these rich scumbags want to break the law, they hire a legal expert to help them. get away with it.
Been granted immunity in the investigation, and they are cooperating with prosecutors. The rest of those fake electors, including the chairman of the Republican Party of Georgia, they presumably remain targets of the investigation. So Fani Willis appears to be casting a very wide net here, looking at not only the big fish, but all the little fish who could potentially flip and testify against others. But would indicting any of those targets, even America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, would that cause such a massive public backlash that you literally have to clear the streets and the courts for it? All of the signs here point to the architect of the big lie being held to account at some point between the end of July and the first 3 weeks of August. Mark your calendars. Joining us now are former U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Georgia, Michael Moore, and Katie Phang, host of the eponymous Katie Phang Show right here on MSNBC. Katie, let me start with you. Sure. It's a delight to see you in person. Same here. Nobody is misreading this, right? The arrows, it's a neon sign rather than an arrow, points to a Donald Trump indictment between the end of July and the first 3 weeks of August. Is that right?
Remember the forewoman from the special grand jury. Yes. What did she say? It's not rocket science. So if it's not rocket science, then you're not going to be shocked, is what she says. I guess we're not going to be shocked.
I mean, the forewoman aside, and I think there was a lot of psychology going on with that forewoman.
Sure.
This is a very big fish in the sea of fishes in and around the attempts to undermine the results of the 2020 election. Donald Trump is a big deal if that is, in fact, what is happening. From the sort of breadcrumbs that we have gotten in recent weeks, from the fake electors who now have immunity deals with prosecutors and are cooperating, the lawyers that have been implicated, just the movement and momentum that we are seeing, what is your expectation here? And how potentially damning is it that you have these cooperating witnesses?
Before she answers, just pay attention to one thing, at least to view this as interesting in the way I did. Why do we know this? Why do we know all this motion? Why is it being telegraphed so much? I think there's a very good reason.
So it's reading tea leaves, as you said.
Yeah.
But I do think that reasonable prosecutors would say that in light of the background of Fani Willis being an expert in RICO and racketeering prosecutions, and because we've seen a wide net cast, a lot of people forget this has been going on for 2 years.
Yeah.
The investigation has had 2 years to be able to grow. It is only lately that you've seen an escalation and yet a pullback. The pullback being the immunity deals that were offered with 8 of the 16 fake electors that participated in that December 2020 meeting wherein they refused to certify the Biden, win. I think you see the possibility that, if we're going to temper expectations, which we should do when we're lawyers, it should be Donald Trump, right? But it could also mean Mark Meadows, who was on that famous phone call to Brad Raffensperger, find me 11,780 votes. It could go as high as Mark Meadows, right? But the reality is, if you have a puppeteer, if you have somebody who set it all in motion, like any good racketeering prosecution, it's going to be the highest guy on the totem pole, and that's Donald Trump. The immunity deals in and of themselves are kind of big flags for us to be looking at, and yet they're just part of the process. They're just a part of how you tee up an investigation and a prosecution. But knowing her background, her being Fani Willis, knowing that we're asking for the security, it's kind of a foregone conclusion, in my opinion. You're going to see Donald Trump on that indictment.
Okay. Here's my thought. Here's why I think we can see the tea leaves to read them. It might cause people to act up if all of a sudden, out of nowhere, from their perspective, Donald Trump is charged in the coup. However, if they are given weeks and months to get used to the idea that Fani Willis is planning to charge Donald Trump, she all but says it. This is time for them to adjust to the idea that we're going to have a court case about this. And it's that simple. Yeah, she is trying to, I think, communicate to lefties, look, I'm doing the work. You're right to be concerned that this work isn't getting done. Not everybody is doing the work they should, but I am. Yes, I think to a degree she's communicating that. And she's right to, by the way. I'm so annoyed by people that have dared to criticize a law enforcement official of any sort. Justice Department, I guess. Somebody in charge of representing the law in the United States. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Anybody who would dare criticize them for reassuring us that they're doing their job. Of course we need reassurance that they are, because they haven't. It's 2023, and this coup is still not dealt with. That's a huge problem. Yes, they should be purple-faced, tears in their eyes, on their knees, begging us for forgiveness for not having dealt with this already, for not having the conviction done. Gavel fall. Yes, she's right for that. But I also think she is telegraphing this for the benefit of people that are going to be just shocked that Donald Trump is actually being considered for this coup. Right now in the United States, I talk about these people not understanding right and wrong without consequences. Case in point, there's people in the United States that believe Donald Trump is the president. Right now, he's the acting shadow president. Why do they believe that? It's an explanation. It's a fairy tale explanation for how we could exist in the state that we do. Because it can't, what you and I have been saying, Donald Trump did it, Donald Trump did a coup, it can't be true from their perspective. Because he's a free man. So, they're going to need, or at least they're not going to need anything. Their opinion, frankly, shouldn't affect the rollout of this, but they will benefit from the foreknowledge that this is likely. And that's why I think we are seeing all of this information. I think partially for our benefit, but mostly so that America can brace itself, the good and bad of it.
Michael, you're a creature of Georgia. The requests that are being made from the DA's office in terms of the courts clearing their schedules, the remote work for the prosecutors in her office, the security concerns in this very specific window of time. Have you ever seen anything like this in your time as an attorney?
I have not. I'm glad to be with you both. I do think this is just odd. It's just a little weird to do this. I mean, to be honest with you, you talk about hooking the big fish. I mean, most of the time if you go hook the big fish, you don't shout about it on top of the water with a megaphone. And so that seems
odd from whose perspective, though? And odd in what way? What are you trying to accomplish? What is she trying to accomplish by doing these things? They bring up a good point. In notifying the courts, how much I'm not sure if they said it yet. They say it eventually. How much foreknowledge do they need? More or less than they've received. So why did they receive more than they need? Because they're not trying to make it a secret. Because they're not at the point yet where they're going to announce everything. But they're telling you, Bonnie Willis and her crew, they're telling you, this is coming. Be ready for it. Everybody who needs to be ready for it, be ready for it.
To be sort of what she's doing here. A lot of these arrangements could have been handled privately and quietly. I mean, the district attorney's office itself is not very far from the chief judge's office, and you can walk down there and sit down and say, this is what's fixing to happen. Can you call the judges together and let them know what's going on, or we're going to be appearing before the grand jury. You can talk to the head of security. You can talk to the police chief. You don't have to do all this by way of some kind of public announcement. So it is strange, and it tells me basically that she's conscious of the fact that she needs to produce after 2 years of investigation, and I think that she's producing in the public eye so they could see that she's doing that she hadn't wasted time and money on it. And I think you're going to see Trump indicted. I don't think there's any possible way that she's going to now get around that after all this sort of unnecessary fanfare. I mean, there's some value to a prosecutor sort of coming in under the cloak of darkness and nabbing your man, so to speak, and running in with an indictment that was kept very quiet, but was returned by a grand jury and announcing it in public the next day. I mean, there's a lot of value to that. So it sounds like she's looking at a big RICO case. It sounds like she's been weaving this net, to try to circle up all the fish in the pond. Again, sometimes the bigger the net you weave, the more likely you are to tangle yourself up in it. So there's some pros and cons to doing it that way. But wouldn't be surprised to see an indictment.
Michael, that's a really good point. I mean, just the style of the wind-up, if you will, to use a baseball metaphor, is radically different than Katie, what we've seen from Jack Smith, right?
Yeah, and Michael makes an exceptional point here. There is a pending motion that has been filed by Donald Trump that has not been ruled on yet. And I actually have the state's response that was just filed on May 15th. And what Trump is saying, and another one of those fake electors is saying, is, look, this is so unusual. This entire special grand jury looks like it's already biased and tainted. And this whole process seems to already be skewed. And then to Michael's point, the more unusual it is, that feeds into the narrative of Donald Trump that this is just a witch hunt. This is just the politicization of a law enforcement arm. And so if you're going to have this much of a preview of what that movie is, it better be a blockbuster. Right. And to Michael's point, it hopefully is a blockbuster because everyone should be held accountable. We've heard Fani Willis say, no one is above the law. We've heard many prosecutors and DAs say that. And if it's true, then Donald Trump should also be on an indictment.
We've been waiting for way too long for this. So it came down to local prosecutors. It came down to local officials to get this guy. We have corruption at a national level. The fact that Merrick Garland was unwilling or unable to get as far as these others have tells us that we need an overhaul of federal law enforcement. Remember, Republicans cannot help but list out the prescription for dealing with them. What are they talking about now? They're talking about overhauling federal investigations, overhauling the federal law enforcement. They're right. We do need to. They're right. This will have to be accomplished in 2024 with the way we vote. Leading up to that vote, so for the rest of this year and most of 2024, we need to make it clear why it's happening, why it's going to happen. We got to be like Babe Ruth, pointing to where we're going to knock that baseball. And then we got to knock it there. But take heart in the fact that we have these local officials who are saving us. Fani Willis has earned her spot in the history books, assuming she goes through with this. She and Alvin Bragg may be the two people who can be most credited with the survival of the United States if it survives. It's Salty Saturday, but folks, I'm feeling great. I think we're all tired. We're all sick of dealing with the same things over and over again. I'm telling you here and now, while these things are not going away, the way in which they're talked about is about to change fundamentally. The conversation we're about to start having with Republicans, with MAGA voters, is going to go from, is he a good person or a bad person? Is he trying to help you or is he trying to hurt you? It's going to go from that to, is he guilty or not guilty? And to settle those conversations, it's not going to be, well, what did your politicians say? What did your news service say? It's going to be, what is the evidence? We know what we're going to see. They're going to be surprised by what they see. Take heart in the fact that you're about to have a bunch of very easy, very fun political debates with people that have been in a cult and are about to start realizing it. Let's see what the wicked community has to say. Lulu Girl. One of the jurors said, if everyone knew the evidence we saw, the country would be united. Ha ha ha. Lulu Girl. With that, I'm hoping we see Trump's appeal deteriorate. Yes. The anti-corporatist says functional. Apparently, it's supposed to be separate from the DOJ and isn't, so they never recommend anyone for a pardon, and you pretty much have to go through the back channels to the president. Interesting. Lulu Girl says she's also communicating to the MAGAs, we'll be armed and ready. Don't come here. Yeah. I think the benefit of that was for the MAGA folks, but the reason she was talking to the people with the guns was so that the MAGA folks saw her talking to the people with the guns. I think you're exactly correct. Excellent breakdown. Lulu Girl says they get so mad if you try to get them thinking. Yes, that's true. The really fun thing that's about to happen, the thing that I'm so excited about, is that, and I tell me, guys, in the folks in the comments here, if you saw the same thing that I do. From my perspective, when we went through a whole phase of really trying to get MAGA folks on here to hear how they defended any of this crap, and it confirmed more or less what we've seen elsewhere. They will throw in their objection to something. And as soon as you come at them with the facts, they abandon that and flee somewhere else in the conversation. They will talk about evidence from X source, and when you put in Y thing that debunks it, they move on to Z source, and so on and so forth. That is not going to be an option anymore. It is going to come down to what was demonstrated in court. That's what everybody's going to be talking about. Everybody is going to have one source of information. What's Fox going to do? You know, Fox hasn't learned anything in terms of morals. They're going to try to do what they've always done. They're going to try to cover for Trump. Okay. What are they going to say? Are they going to say ignore the court case? We're not going to show you anything from the court case today. We know you don't want to hear about that. It's Donald Trump on trial. They're going to have no choice. Everybody's going to be going from the same source of information, the trial. Actually, the trials. Right now, people are saying E. Jean Carroll lied. But even when they do that, now we can point to evidence. We can point to the testimony. And they are able to not, they're able to scoff and ignore it because the consequences of it were Donald Trump has to sign a check for $5 million. But if the consequences are Donald Trump is going to prison, Donald Trump will have been officially declared to be responsible for the coup. Not Antifa, not whatever conspiracy they choose to believe. That changes things. So you're about to have a bunch of real fun conversations where a bunch of dummies who fell for a scam have to deal with that. I would encourage you to be kind but not nice. They're going to be looking for a reaction from us which would match the reaction they would expect if we had behaved the way they behaved. If we behaved the way they behaved, they'd be trying to put us in prison. I don't think we should necessarily say, all 2020 Republican voters are going to prison. No. But we shouldn't pretend like they haven't been hurting us by supporting this fool, by willingly being ignorant. And they know they have. They are aware of the dishonesty that they are presenting. When they flee from one topic to another, they know what they're doing. They know they're fundamentally wrong. They're not educated enough to make a defense of the person they want to defend, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if they are going to believe you, they're going to need you to be terse with them, but still be kind. Make it clear that you are a better person in your soul than the modern Republican voter. Make it crystal clear. You're being kind to them. You're saying, okay, now you know. Good. Now that you know, I expect you to act accordingly. I expect you to acknowledge it out loud. So you acknowledge Donald Trump did do X, Y, whatever thing you're talking about. Good. They will be more likely to reintegrate if they see you treating them with honesty. If they see faux lefty not kindness, faux lefty niceness. I understand. I mean, people can get just so wrapped up in the political moment that don't do that. Don't be too forgiving, is my point. Because you'll lose them. We've talked about this frequently here. It's important now. Try in your heart to embrace it. It's not too hard to adopt it as a stance. You can be kind to someone. You can be even forgiving to someone while still being honest with them. Don't lie when you're talking about these things, and make it seem like they don't have any responsibility, like you don't hold them at all responsible. But also acknowledge the fact that so many people fell for this for a reason. These people were lied to. They chose to fall for the lie, let's be honest, but they were lied to. Now that the truth is going to come out, the full truth, the harsh truth, now that it's going to come out in a court of law, looks like beginning next week, we should prepare our strategies for converting. Remember what we've been saying. The Democrats, they are going to be the new conservatives. As of now, that's the way it looks. Maybe there will be something that is built in place of the Republican Party. Maybe, I don't know. But for the foreseeable future, the Democrats are going to be the new conservatives. Adopt that culturally. Put that idea in people's heads in 2023, early as you can. We're in the summer now. We're eyeballing the summer. I don't know when it officially is declared, but the point is, put that in their heads now, and they'll laugh at you. And and people who are consider themselves moderate to slightly right-leaning Republican voters, they'll laugh at you right now. Keep saying it. Start spreading that message around now. Now is the time to start doing that. Because in 2024, we need a House, a Senate, and a White House that believes in democracy and that is actually trying to help America. And we can disagree about how to help America, but we do need those things. We have school shootings. We have just mass shootings out of control, including our children being killed in schools. We have Republican crime left and right. We've got fascistic authoritarian rule in Republican-run states. It's got to end. We need federal laws that make the things that Republicans want to do impossible. We need to lay the groundwork to start converting people. Put the idea in people's heads, because it will happen, that the Democrats are going to be the new conservatives. So that when this information comes to light, when the things we don't even know about yet around the coup are brought out in court, these people have in their heads an idea of what they're going to do. This is also why I am jumping on with both feet the idea that we need to vote in primaries. Because while I don't know for sure, it is possible that as early as 2024, a year is an eternity in politics, as early as 2024, the majority decision as to whether or not this country will be run in a left-wing or right-wing manner will really be happening in the primaries. Understand how serious this fake elector business is. I'm not joking when I say the Republican Party is a criminal organization. Donald Trump, in an attempt to stay in office, got state-level Republicans in 7 states to engage in a very serious crime. The most un-American thing you can do, trying to take away people's votes, trying to make them irrelevant, trying to take away fair representation. Then he did a violent coup. Then he physically tried to take over a Capitol building. More than just Donald Trump are going down for this. This will paint the entirety of the Republican Party in a real ugly light. We are probably going to have refugees from that party left and right. Well, right and right, let's be honest. But we're going to have refugees from that party. A change is coming to the United States. If we can acknowledge now that is likely to happen, we can control it. And we can set up what the next 50 years of politics are going to look like. The last time this happened was around Richard Nixon's time. And we handled it poorly. We trusted the yes men in government to turn around and decide what happens with their bosses. And what did they decide? Well, Richard Nixon gets a pardon. And then the media praises the pardon and says, "Oh, this is what we needed to move on as a country." And what was the legacy of that? Obama, after Bush, saying, making it clear, we're going to move on. New chapter. Goes back to Reconstruction. What did we do after the good guys won? We need to plan for victory. And it kind of sucks because it feels like there's all the stress in the world on us now. And it feels like the future could be up is down, left is right. It seems like it could be anything. But I'm telling you, based on the way it's going now, it looks like there is about to be a mass realization about Donald Trump and Republicans generally speaking. As tired as you might feel, understand that the other side's been fighting too. And they are also exhausted. And the people that are right here are not going to break. Because for us, breaking means death. It means the end of democracy. It means crystal knocked. So we're not going to break. And if we don't want to have to do this again, and again, and again, if we don't want a 4th Reconstruction and a 5th Reconstruction, if we don't want Nixon 3 and George W. Bush 2, if we don't want to keep doing this, then this time we should prepare. We start the preparing culturally. Make the message clear. Repeat it. Democrats are going to be the new conservatives. You'll get laughed at now. You'll get laughed at a little bit less in 6 months. And people will nod along with you in a year. Vote in primaries. And then get ready to vote blue no matter who. Let's see what the wicked community has to say. I've come this far. I'm not giving in just yet, says Dean Oldfield. Hell yeah. Lulu Girl says, I hope Jack and Merrick get it right. I do too. A wicked Foxy Dragon. You're all over this. I love it. DeSantis won't win. He has the personality of a clam. Yeah, wholeheartedly agreed. Patrick Kibido says, at Lulu Girl, I'm afraid if Jack Smith hands Garland a slam dunk, he will punt. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Mixed sports metaphors, but you get it. I wholeheartedly agree. Merrick Garland has no business in the job that he's got. I've believed that for a long time. He's done nothing to prove me wrong. Well, y'all, I had a blast this Salty Saturday. It's just been a hoot and a half laughing at the comeuppance that are coming. Wireless Mike, thank you again for that wonderful clip. That was just too much fun. Oh, my gosh. But we're going to keep it going next week. I do want to tell you I might be traveling quite a bit next week. Not really sure. We're going to find out. However, this time I know it's coming. So if we don't have a live show, there will be a pre-recorded show for y'all to see. So thank you for being patient with me this week. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake. I'll see you next time.